continent. Now online with all your sports fixtures, lifestyle, and more.
It is midday, and this is Africa Update coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa on Channel Africa from an African perspective. I'm Lulu Gaboo. A lot coming up in the next hour, but first, let's go to the news.
SABC News. The African perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. Good day. Senegalese police say they have arrested 14 people and broken up a pedophile gang operating between the country and France. Those arrested, who are all Senegalese, were part of a transnational criminal group that has been in operation since 2017. The 14 accused were brought before a judge on Friday following searches in several neighborhoods in Dakar and the city of Kaulek in the southeast of the capital. The statement said the operation was conducted through cooperation between Senegal and France, with a delegation of French officers involved in the mission. Suspended east of Johannesburg head of Legal and Risk Services, Advocate Kemi Bahari in South Africa, has taken to the stand at the Matlanga Commission in Pretoria. Advocate Bahari has previously been accused of shielding suspended Ekurhuleni Metro Police Deputy Chief Julius Mkwanazi by crafting an internal legal report that cleared him. The Commission has recently heard testimony from police officials who have been implicated in corrupt activities within law enforcement agencies. Previous testimony has alleged that Bihari also received a bonus for blocking disciplinary action against Mkwanazi. Bihari says allegations that he received a bribe are shocking and astonishing.
And the main focus here, for me it was shocking, astonishing in all my career, to come and hear that you've received a 600,000 rand loyalty money, bribe, however it's linked. I will deal with that issue because that will take me back to where this matter comes through. And but that was for me. I don't know. I've been through, through a lot. But I'm saying I'm glad that the opportunity has come for this.
Clinical experts are warning that a reliance on artificial intelligence or AI for medical diagnosis carries a high margin of error as the technology lacks the nuance to manage unique individual health cases. Dr. Jess Morris of Mediclinic Morningside in Johannesburg, South Africa, maintains that while AI can assist in data processing, it will never replace the human mind's ability to provide personalized treatment plans.
Despite the fact that it's so intelligent, it'll never replace the human mind. I think that's something very important. And when it comes to medical care, I think the biggest thing is we've seen over the years how Google, we always call it Dr. Google for that specific reason. You put in your symptoms, and of course, what's it going to do? It's going to spit out the list of possibilities. And cancer is unfortunately, or I'm dying in 2 days.
The death toll in the collapse of a residential building in the Lebanese city of Tripoli has risen to 14 after search and rescue operations ended. Civil Defense Director General Imad Keris said rescue teams recovered 14 bodies and rescued 8 people from the rubble of the collapsed buildings in the northern. Officials said on Sunday that 2 adjoining buildings had collapsed. A number of aging residential buildings have collapsed in Tripoli, Lebanon's second largest city, in recent weeks, highlighting deteriorating infrastructure and years of neglect. And finally, the White House has revealed the key members of the body that will supervise the next phase of the peace process in Gaza. The executives of what U.S. President Donald Trump has called the Board of Peace include his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and the former British Prime Minister, Tony Blair. The BBC's David Willies has the details.
The members of the Board of Peace will oversee the second phase of Donald Trump's plan to end the conflict in Gaza. On their shoulders will rest responsibility for maintaining a fragile truce and the reconstruction of a territory all but lain to waste by more than 2 years of war. Adding to the gargantuan challenge of rebuilding one of the most densely populated places on earth are routine violations of the current ceasefire agreement and Hamas's refusal to publicly commit to a full disarmament in Gaza.
For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Jolani Tulo Wepe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Now, sports headline. South Africa staged a thrilling comeback to beat Montenegro in the Davis Cup World Group 2. And organizers of the Midma Mile confirmed the passing away of a participant. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
This is Africa Update, your pulse to the continent. Stories shaping nations and voices driving change. Stay informed, stay connected, right here on Channel Africa, the African Perspective.
It is 12:05 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa on DSTV's audio bouquet channel 802, OpenView channel 628, and on www.channelafrica.co.za, as well as on the SABC Plus app and Channel Africa app, available on both Google and Apple stores. Now join us in conversation on our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1. On Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes on +2683 288 6684 hashtag Africa Update. On hashtag Africa Update Ask, this week is Teen Suicide Prevention Week, and we're asking you how teens in your country are speaking about the issue of suicide and depression. Share your thoughts and your views on all our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes on +267 83 288 6684. Hashtag Africa Update Us.
Your window to the continent and beyond. Africa Update. Only on Channel Africa. Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
It is 12 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Now, South Africa's Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Ronald Lamola, has emphasized a need for the African Union to do more in resolving conflict on the continent. Lamola also called on member states to honor their obligations to the United Nations. The call comes after the UN chief, Antonio Guterres, warned the world body is in financial trouble with countries not honoring their debt. Lamola was speaking ahead of the AU Heads of State and Government summits that will take place in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia on the 14th of February.
We are looking forward to a great year, continuing to strengthen and affirm the role of multilateral platforms. As you are aware, we are chairing SADC as an interim chair, so it will be to help the process of constitutional transition in Madagascar, and also peacekeeping missions across the continent, including to continue to be seized with the matter of the Eastern DRC. As you are aware, displacements continue, so SADC has to continue to look into this issue, but also issues of regional integration, which becomes key. SADC's trade and integration is at less than 21%. So we need to look forward to work with my counterparts, and including Minister Dow, Trade, and his counterparts in the region, to build on that regional integration, to be able to build trade, to build economies for the region, so that we are able to create jobs in all parts of the SADC region, but also for the economy of SADC to grow, including issues of climate change. You have seen what is happening in Mozambique and many parts of the SADC region. So those are also issues of prime importance that SADC will continue to look into. And as you are aware, next week is the African Union, the Executive Council, which will be followed by the summit on Saturday 14 and 15. But prior to that is the meeting of officials and the Executive Council that will be looking into various issues of the continent, including the reform agenda of the AU itself, its structure, how it should be efficient and function, but also to look into all issues of the continent on peace, issues of Sudan, As you are aware, the biggest humanitarian crisis that the continent is facing. But also South Africa is the chairperson of the C5, responsible to take South Sudan to ensure that the revitalized peace agreement in South Sudan is implemented. And this is a big year for South Sudan because it's a year where they are supposed to go to elections by December 2025. So South Africa will be seized with that, will be reporting to the Committee of Five of the African Union how far we are going. The revitalized peace agreement is fragile with serious challenges in South Sudan. And it's a matter that we are really seized with and continue to call all the stakeholders to continue to uphold the contents of the revitalized peace agreement for peace to continue to be given a chance in South Sudan, and to call for all parties and stakeholders to cease any form of hostilities and focus their work on implementation of the revitalized peace agreement. So indeed, our year is going to be a hectic one, but also the UN, as you are aware, is facing huge challenges, budgetary constraints because of the withdrawal of the US of some in most of the institutions of the UN. So it is also a big platform that we need to continue to be seized with so that the UN is able to discharge its mandate as the world's prime multilateral platform. So with all member states, we have to ensure that the UN's existential challenges are resolved and the UN is able to continue to discharge its mandate.
That was South Africa's Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Ronald Lamula.
Keep Africa in your hands. Connect to our website for all your news, sports, and cultural updates. ChannelAfrica.co.za. 60 years of Channel Africa. Your trusted voice. Your African perspective. Into the future. Africa. It's time to plug into the heartbeat of the continent. Tune in to Channel Africa, your go-to radio station that broadcasts in 5 different languages.
L'Afrique du Sud célèbre la journée nationale du
Kabla hujaitwa kwa jina la Double K
or more of our forests have been destroyed.
Tamo ndi
Partido Africano da Independência da Guiné.
See, Channel Africa represents every corner of this amazing land. From Lagos to Cape Town, Nairobi to Dakar, we've got you covered with the freshest news, music, and cultures. So, turn up the volume, feel the rhythm. And join the conversation. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
It is 12 after 12 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has informed UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres that South Africa will withdraw its troop contribution to MONUSCO, the UN peacekeeping mission in the Democratic Republic of Congo, after nearly 27 years of involvement. South Africa currently has over 700 soldiers serving under MONUSCO, placing it among the top 10 troop contributing countries to the mission. And to discuss this further, we are joined on the line by defence expert Dean Wingren. Dean, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Good afternoon, and thank you.
Now, Dean, what are the main security implications of South Africa withdrawing troops from MONUSCO, and why now?
Yes, well, that's a very good question, and South Africa has been part of the MONUSCO mission since it was established in 1999, and is South Africa's longest-running peacekeeping and peace enforcement mission. So it's not something to be taken lightly when the president says that he's unilaterally withdrawing from the mission. Why now is the question. Well, the MONUSCO mission has always been intended to be terminated initially at the end of 2025, and then it was extended to the end of this year. So with the funding crisis within the UN generally, there's less funds for these peacekeeping missions, and hence the UN has had to cut back on the various contributing countries and equipment. So it's not a very good point. We've seen that the M23 rebel group is on the offensive in the eastern DRC, notwithstanding any so-called peacekeeping deals that have been signed. So, but it does place the UN forces in a bad position now that South Africa is withdrawing. And we must remember as well that MONUSCO and the peacekeeping mission is just a tool to try and stabilize the situation in the eastern DRC, and so that we can get a political solution. It's not there to cure, the conflict in the DRC itself.
Now, with that, bearing that in mind, could this withdrawal affect the stability in the eastern DRC? And if so, how? And what risk does the withdrawal pose for civilian protection in conflict areas?
It's certainly not very good for them. As I mentioned, the Rwandan-backed rebel groups, they are on the offensive. Rwanda just very recently, for the first time, actually acknowledged that they are supporting M23. So the Congolese government is on the back foot. They desperately require the support of the UN mission, as well as its neighboring countries, to try and stabilize the situation there and prevent the various rebel groups in the area from gaining a greater foothold than they already have. And this has seen quite a big increase in refugees, coming out the area, going into neighboring countries. And unfortunately, as with any conflict, it's a situation the civilians that suffer the worst. And with South Africa withdrawing, it does mean that not only is South Africa losing sort of its influence and responsibility for the region, but it does not bode well for the MONUSCO force as a whole.
And, how might this decision affect South Africa's standing also with the United Nations?
I don't think it will affect its standing within the UN as such. The president has explained to the Secretary General of the UN, Guterres, that the reasons why, and the president has acknowledged that it's not because of lack of funding from the UN or the downscaling of the mission. President Ramaphosa said it's to consolidate and realign the resources of the South African National Defence Force. And unfortunately, that is what it's come down to. It's been the years of defunding of our defence force that has led to the sort of inability of our defence force to simultaneously protect our borders and undertake missions within the country and around our country, as well as external deployments. But I think the UN does understand the situation. And while there will be, it will affect, informally, it will affect South Africa's influence and responsibilities within the geopolitical context of SADC and the African region in general.
And does this signal a broader shift in South Africa's foreign or defense policy?
It's forced a rethink in the sense that, South Africa unfortunately does not have the capability at the moment to undertake these type of missions. Yes, the UN does refund South Africa for the number of soldiers and the equipment that it sends there, but it doesn't cover the full cost. And even then, South Africa has recognized that it's not having its troops in a theater such as this without air cover. So for the last couple of years, it had to pay and fund the deployment of the Rooivalk attack helicopter itself. Until even then, maintenance issues and funding issues meant that the Rooivalk had to be grounded in the DRC. So I think this is just a pragmatic decision that recognizes the situation that the Defence Force and the country finds itself in, and the sovereignty of South Africa's borders must take precedence. And, and the long years and decades of South Africa assisting in many, many peacekeeping missions, not only in the DRC, but in Sudan, in Eritrea, and Ethiopia, and many other countries in Africa, is to the great benefit of South Africa. And South African troops were thought very, very well in how they conducted themselves in these various key
Now, Dean, just in wrapping up, we have run out of time, but I have to ask, who is likely to fill the gap that will be left by South Africa's withdrawal? And could this also encourage other countries to withdraw from MONUSCO as well?
It's difficult to say. MONUSCO is winding down. So whether it will be extended for a further year into 2027, we don't know. And other countries would be hesitant to send additional or new troops, as a new contributing country to the MONUSCO mission without having, the ability to see and the comfort of knowing for how long will they be there. And for them, and they also do it, that they must also be refunded for the costs incurred in sending the troops there. And with the winding down or with the reduced funding that the UN finds itself in, I don't see MONUSCO mission expanding. And I think this might just be that extra straw that breaks the back of the camel. And
well, Dean,
this could very possibly be the final year.
Yeah. Well, Dean, thank you so much for your time on Africa Update. And but that's where we'll leave it for today. That was Dean Wingren, who is an defense expert, joining us on the line.
Africa, meet Abedi.
Yeah, that's me.
Abedi is a music lover through and through.
I really love African music.
He's got a taste for all kinds of tunes and spends his days listening to Channel Africa. Guess what? He didn't know.
Okay.
Channel Africa wants to help Abedi and all music lovers everywhere to discover even more incredible music. That is why Channel Africa is calling on all African musicians to submit their music. Musicians, remember to give us all your relevant information. Make your submissions at music@channelafrica.co.za. Submissions are your chance to be heard on radio. But sadly, they do not guarantee that you will be playlisted. All submissions will be carefully reviewed to see if they meet our station's requirement. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Africa Update, your daily dose of African insights with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
It is 23 after 12 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Oxfam has warned of a deepening crisis in an already dire situation for people in South Sudan. Families are being cut off from food, clean water and urgent humanitarian support as fighting continues. Multiple health facilities and aid agencies have been looted, which has led to the suspension of services and staff displacements. And to speak to us on this, we are joined on the line by Dokas Wangu, a humanitarian response coordinator at Oxfam. Dokas, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
Now, Dokas, how has the recent fighting especially affected access to food, clean water and healthcare for civilians? And which areas are currently the hardest hit, and how many people are affected?
Thank you very much. So following the escalation of conflict in Jonglei and Lake states in southern Sudan, we have seen a number of people being affected. We have seen a looting of multiple health facilities for aid agencies and staff having to flee, including Oxfam, because of and suspending humanitarian responses, and a lot of staff displacement. So over 280,000 have been forced to flee their homes since December, and this includes 75% of women and children who are now sheltering in bushes, overcrowded schools, and churches. And this means that they are not able to access the usual humanitarian support through food services, water, sanitation, and hygiene. So people having to defecate in open spaces. So there's no clean water. So people are having to take water from swamps that is contaminated. Essential services like education has also been impacted, and we are seeing women and particularly girls that are very highly exposed to violence, and this is driving families to resort to early and forced marriages as an economic survival strategy. So we are seeing a lot of overwhelming displacement, and it does not help that humanitarian agencies are cut off because of insecurity and access constraints, and this may lead to starvation of a number of people who are displaced in those areas.
And just speaking of some of these areas, are there any areas where humanitarian access is completely blocked?
Yes, most of the areas are completely blocked because of the ongoing fighting, and but also because of insecurity. Because if humanitarian staff are being attacked and vehicles being looted, offices being looted, it makes it very hard for people to be able to respond. So the insecurity, the cutting off of roads is something that has led these people to be completely displaced and humanitarian support cut off.
And what emergency measures is Oxfam taking to reach affected communities despite the insecurity?
So what we do is work through our partners, but that is also greatly constrained because we also want to ensure the safety of our partners. Prior to the insecurity, we were able to reach 80% of the displaced communities through provision of clean water and sanitation, providing emergency cash assistance for food and essential services, but also offering safe and learning spaces for children. So currently, it is greatly constrained, and we are hoping that in the coming days, the conflict will end or ease up so that we are able to reach those people who are cut off. Because with insecurity, it creates great access challenges, meaning that we cannot reach those people who are greatly in need of humanitarian support.
What obligations do parties to the conflict have under international humanitarian law?
So they do have the obligation to bring the end to conflict and allow for impartial assistance to the people that are affected by this conflict. There should be access should be allowed for all humanitarian workers. There should be safe corridors for humanitarian actors to be able to pass through. Humanitarian organizations should not be attacked, neither should be the civilians be attacked. So there should be safe corridors, ensuring that we are able to reach the most vulnerable, and also ensure that the most vulnerable, the people who are impacted, are also able to reach services that are being provided.
And Dokas, if the fighting continues, what does Oxfam foresee in the coming weeks or months?
This is going to be catastrophic because even prior to the fighting, hunger had already reached catastrophic levels. Families are having to flee right now. So if we are not able to reach the people and this conflict continues, the situation is just going to escalate. Within the 2026 humanitarian response plan for South Sudan, we already had over 10 million people. That is 2/3 of the of the South Sudan population projected to require humanitarian assistance. This current conflict is just adding to that burden. We already had 11,000 people who are living in catastrophic conditions, and more than 700,000 people people, particularly in Jonglei, were already facing hunger crisis prior to this conflict. So what we are likely to see is an escalation and more deprivation of services, maybe more deaths and people who are more malnourished. So the situation, that the outlook does not look any good at all, and we are calling for an end to this conflict and crisis.
Do you think your calls are being heeded?
We are yet to see a de-escalation in the crisis, but discussions are ongoing. So we really call on all the parties to the conflict to end the conflict and at a minimum allow access so that the people of South Sudan can be able to get food, and so that the people can also be able to safely reach humanitarian assistance.
Dorcas, thank you for joining us on Africa Update. We are going to leave it there for today. That's Dorcas Wangu, Humanitarian Response Coordinator at Oxfam, joining us on the line. It is 12:30 Central African Time, and our news headlines up next.
Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet. Channel 802. SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. Good afternoon. Making headlines. Parliament's ad hoc committee in Cape Town, South Africa will consider to request another extension on its deadline. The committee, established to probe allegations of criminal infiltration, corruption and political interference in the criminal justice system, has already been granted 2 extensions. Senegalese police say they have arrested 14 people and broken up a pedophile gang operating between the country and France. And finally, the man convicted of shooting dead 51 people at 2 mosques in New Zealand 7 years ago has begun an appeal against his conviction and sentence. I will have details on these and other stories at 1 o'clock.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective. Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
First up in our sports update, we begin with tennis news. South Africa staged a thrilling comeback to beat Montenegro 3-2 in the Davis Cup World Cup 2 playoff at Irene Country Club in the country's capital, Pretoria. Trailing 2-1 after losing the doubles rubber, Philip Henning leveled the tie with a commanding 6-3, 6-2 win over Petar Jovanovic. Alec Beckley then sealed victory in the decisive singles, fighting back from 5-2 down in the first set to defeat Aleksandr Krivokapic 7-6, 6-3. The result kept a dramatic turnout and a turnaround for Pete Noval's team, with the home crowd roaring the players on to a memorable triumph. Let's hear from Captain Noval.
The boys to be able to come back, it's amazing. I'm unbelievably proud of them, and as a team, we've been trying to have a great team culture and trying to keep everything together and the pride for playing for your country, and so we've focused on that. And
on to football news, Kaizer Chiefs co-coach Khalil Ben Youssef has sounded the alarm over mounting injuries from a congested fixture list, arguing that relief in the domestic league should be automatic due to their heavy schedule. Speaking after his 2-1 victory over Al Masry in Polokwane, which sent them top of the CAF Confederations Cup group, Ben Youssef suggested Orlando Pirates appear to have received more favourable treatment. The Chiefs coach said squad rotation has become unavoidable in order to manage the heavy workload.
When you prepare the fixture, you have to think about the player, you have to think about the team. We are in a situation as a Kaizer Chiefs team, we are playing this competition and we played all our PSL league. I remember last season, a lot of teams, they play Champions League or CAF games. They changed the fixture, they changed the game. They continue last 5 games in May. We are playing the CAF and we played almost all the games. We have to think also about the team. We have to think how we manage with the team. Sometimes we have to find solutions also for us. Playing all the game outside, traveling, load and everything, we are in big risk of injury for our player. So for that we have to make rotation.
Some more cricket news. England survived the scare in the T20 World Cup opener, edging Nepal by 4 runs in a thrilling Group C clash at Wankhede Stadium. Harry Brook and Jacob Bethel struck half centuries before Will Jacks blasted 39 not out, including 3 sixes in the final over to lift England to a 184 4-7. And finally, organizers of the Midma Mile confirmed with deep sadness that a 63-year-old female participant passed away after suffering cardiac arrest during the event earlier yesterday in South Africa's KwaZulu-Natal. Rescue teams and fellow swimmers responded immediately when she showed signs of distress in the water, initiating CPR before handing her over to ER24 medics. Despite extensive efforts both at the dam and later at the Life Hilton Hospital, resuscitation was unsuccessful. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fikile Ngwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
The whole population of Africa has been shocked to the depth of its soul.
For 60 years, Channel Africa has been the voice that connects the continent, telling our stories and sharing our vision with the world. This year, we mark 6 decades of broadcast excellence.
60 years of stories, sound, and connection.
6 years of African conversations that matter.
This is 60 years of broadcast excellence.
Rooted in Africa's heartbeat and looking boldly into the future. Join Channel Africa as we celebrate 60 years of broadcasting. Still strong, still vibrant, and still giving you the African perspective.
Channel Africa.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
A very good afternoon. The rebuilding of the South African Revenue Service illustrates the value of the commissions of inquiry. This is according to President Cyril Ramaphosa in today's weekly letter to the nation. Last week, the President visited the SARS head office to commend its staff and leadership for achieving the highest revenue collection in the tax authority's history by collecting $143 billion in the last financial year. He says that this achievement follows the implementation of the recommendations of the 2018 Nugent Commission and shows what is possible with a clear mission, committed leadership and capable people. Busi Popela reports.
When the SARS Commission of Inquiry began its work, the institution was crippled by state capture, low staff morale, and weak revenue collection. President Cyril Ramaphosa says with nearly all recommendations implemented 7 years later, public trust in the institution now stands at around 75%, compared to just 48% 5 years ago. He says SARS stands as a blueprint in government's ongoing efforts, including the changing of laws and processes, as well as investigations and prosecutions, to build an ethical, capable state.
The Mining Qualifications Authority says although mining beneficiation is heading towards the right direction, more could be done to achieve this. The comment by the statutory body responsible for administering a number of skills development initiatives in the mining sector comes as the African Mining Indaba is taking place today in Cape Town, South Africa. The event has brought together African leaders, industry stakeholders and investors to discuss the responsible development of the continent's mineral resources. Stakeholder Relations Manager at the Mining Qualifications Authority, Carol Maila, says there are many factors that stunt progress that will ensure the country profits from mining beneficiation.
There's a number of challenges that we have, including energy shortages that we experience. We have issues with poor rail and port logistics. The production costs apparently now are very expensive. We also require infrastructure and competitive electricity prices. So because of that, we are struggling a little bit. But I think with the critical mineral strategy, South Africa can be established as a leader in the renewable energy and e-mobility solutions. And I think we are going in the right direction.
Meanwhile, Maila says that there is a silver lining since they're doing all they can to ensure the country's best place to reap the rewards of mining beneficiation.
We look at our curriculum and we do our research through consultation with the sector and the employers themselves to say, employers, what exactly do you want us to do in terms of beneficiation? If it's a topic that we're speaking about, which it is, we say, what areas can we skill people in to ensure that beneficiation happens within the country in the right way? What are the skills that are needed? And those are called maybe scarce skills that we don't have in the country. And then we design them through our partners, the QCTO, that does the accreditation and the drafting of curriculum. And then we train people in that.
Global food prices have fallen for the 5th month in a row, driven by record harvests and rising stockpiles. This easing is helping to stabilize international markets, but many African countries continue to struggle with high food costs, partly due to import dependencies and local supply challenges. Rise in rice and vegetable oil prices also highlights that not all staples are becoming cheaper. Leader of the Food and Agricultural Organization's Price Index team in Rome, Monica Totova, elaborates.
So what we are looking at, or what we are keeping in the back of our minds when we are analyzing the food commodity markets is there going to be some sort of a shock? Now, shocks can come in many shapes and forms. One of them, for example, the most frequent one, is a weather-related shock. For now, which would then impact the amount of staples that is being produced.
Japanese stocks surged to record high as Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi's Liberal Democratic Party LDP basked in a historic election victory. The LDP secured 316 out of 465 seats in yesterday's election, which is the first time a single party has won a two-thirds lower house majority since Japan's parliament was established in its current form in 1947. The resounding mandate is a gamble that paid off for Takaichi, who now faces the challenge of reviving Japan's moribund economy and tackling cost of living woes. The Nikkei 225 index rallied by more than 5% in early trade today, briefly crossing the 57,000 mark for the first time. It then gave up some gains, but still closed up at 3.9% at a record high of 56,363. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 366. In Botswana it's at 13 pula 10. Kenya 128 shilling 45, and Zambia 18 kwacha 63. The BRICS countries in Brazil, the dollar there 5 ruble 21. Russia 76 rubles 94. India 90 rupees 43. China 6 yuan 93, and in South Africa the dollar will cost you 16 rand 2 cents. 73 pence to the British pound and 84 to the euro. Gold $5,005, while platinum $2,089 per ounce. Brand crude oil is at $67.31 a barrel. For any business stories you would like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business in Johannesburg, I'm Tabisolo Hogo.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. We are on Open Views Audio Bouquet. Channel 628. Be inspired. Stay informed. Channel Africa, the beauty of life. Now available anytime, anywhere with our new app.
This is it. The new era of SABC2 is officially here. Stories, voices and moments South Africans can experience together. Live in every beat. Tonight, an SABC2 night.
For 60 years, Channel Africa has connected the continent. Celebrate the journey. Celebrate the African perspective.
Você é fluente em português? É apaixonado por rádio e quer trabalhar na África do Sul? Você tem documentos que o qualificam para trabalhar na África do Sul? Nesse caso, podemos ter uma oportunidade para você trabalhar no Canal África. Envie seu currículo e demonstração para Canal África at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Lembre-se, se você não receber alguma resposta nossa em 14 dias, isso significa que você não foi selecionado. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
Africa Update on Channel Africa.
It is 12:44 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Teen Suicide Prevention Week is a time to talk about mental health, look out for one another, and remind each other that help is always available. School pressure, social media, family issues, friendships, and the future can feel overwhelming, and sometimes people hide how much they're struggling because they don't want to seem weak or be a burden. Being a teen today isn't easy, and to discuss this topic with us, we are joined on the line by Roshni Paboo-Sita, SADC Project Manager for Education. Roshni, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me.
Now, Roshni, what is the We Hear You Silalele campaign, and why is listening at the heart of teen suicide prevention?
So, Silalele, we are listening. The campaign is the topic for this year's Teen Suicide Prevention Week campaign for SADC, and at its heart, basically, it is our promise to young people, just a promise to them for us to say, you are not invisible, your voice matters. You know, so many teens are telling us on the lines when we go out to schools that they don't feel heard. They are feeling dismissed, they are feeling misunderstood, and I think they're feeling judged. And so basically this campaign is about changing that. It's about slowing things down, putting distractions away, and really listening. When a teen is basically brave enough to open up, suicide prevention doesn't always begin with a huge intervention. Sometimes it just begins with, I'm here, I'm listening, just tell me what's going on.
Now, the statistics around teen suicide and depression are quite alarming. What do they tell us about the reality teens are facing today? And just break it down in a way that, parents or siblings or anyone who's listening will understand it and just get it hammered in.
Yeah, you know, when you look at those numbers, it is nearly 1 in 5 teens report having attempted suicide, and 24% have said they've experienced those prolonged feelings of depression and hopelessness. We can't ignore what that means. Those are not just numbers. These are learners sitting in classrooms. These are people smiling in photos, going home, getting that emotional weight that we may never see because they're hiding behind those smiles. And so our teens are facing academic pressure. They're facing bullying. They're facing financial stress. They're facing family conflict. They're deep loneliness. And so many of them are struggling quietly. They're struggling behind those smiles. They're struggling behind those laughs. They're struggling behind those, I'm okay, I'm fine, nothing's wrong. And that's because they don't feel safe enough to say that I am struggling. They don't feel safe enough to say that I need help because they do feel judged. They do feel like if I say something, someone is going to laugh, someone is going to bully me. And so that's the problem, is that so many of them are struggling quietly. And that's why those statistics are so alarming, is because so many teens don't want to tell us what is wrong. And that's why Silalele exists, because we do want to listen and we do want to hear you. And so that's why those statistics are so scary and so alarming, because so many of our teens are saying we don't want to talk about it because we are feeling judged. And so we don't want those statistics to be like that anymore.
What are some warning signs that teens may be struggling with depression or suicidal thoughts?
Look out for signs like withdrawing from friends or family. Have they become increasingly irritable? Are there sudden mood changes? Something that's very different from how they usually are. Are they eating too much or eating too little? Are they sleeping too much or sleeping too little? Is there a drop in their school performance? Are they talking about feeling hopeless or feeling like a burden? Have they expressed thoughts about death or even disappearing. And sometimes remember that the signs are very subtle. And so that's why, staying connected and checking in regularly is so important. We need to, look out for those phrases like, I feel like a burden and life will be better if I'm not around. So we need to look out for those subtle signs.
Phrases like, you'll get over it, or it's just a phase. Why can these phrases be very harmful to young people?
So phrases like you'll get over it, in that moment, they don't feel like they will. To an adult, it may seem very temporary, but to a teen, it can be very overwhelming, and it may feel eternal and endless. And when their pain is minimized, even unintentionally by us adults or friends, it feels like we are creating shame. And shame often leads to that withdrawal instead of openness. And that's something that we just need to remember, that we don't want them to feel that shame. We don't want to minimize their pain. And so we just have to be very conscious about those phrases like, you'll get over it, it'll be over soon. We have to think about, we have to meet them at the place that they are currently.
If someone is worried about a teen right now, what steps do they need to take? How do parents create safe spaces? We have run out of time. Very briefly.
Don't wait. Thinking about it. And reach out to FedEx Suicide Crisis Line, 0800 567 567. There's always someone that's there to listen. CILA.
Thank you so much, Roshni, and we'll leave it there for today. That's Roshni Pabu Sita Sadig, Project Manager for Education, joining us on the line.
As Africa renews, so does its voices. 60 years of Channel Africa. As the sun rises on 2026, Channel Africa celebrates with you. This year, may prosperity flow like water. May unity strengthen our nations. And may every African story inspire the world.
Channel Afrique vous accompagne dans cette célébration. Que l'espoir illumine notre continent.
Que as vozes de África ecoem com orgulho.
Ustawi na ufanisi na vitiririke kama maji.
From all of us at Channel Africa, we wish you and yours a joyful, successful, and prosperous 2026.
Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
Well, we say happy Monday to Tebogo Kuleni on the Upside team. How are you today?
Fantastic, Lulu. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
Happy National Pizza Day.
Oh, really?
Question. Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
When I was younger, yes. Now, no.
What changed?
I don't know. Just, no. Something changed. It just doesn't work.
You know what? I don't mind it. I know people are a bit finicky about it, but I actually don't mind it.
Yeah.
Find the right place that has maybe a sourdough-based pizza, wood fire oven. You got something good there. Here's what's coming up on the Upside this afternoon. Now, imagine an app where you can find a place where you can stay, short-term stays, short-term rentals, and then a place to live for a long time. So short-term and long-term.
Okay.
And also a place to work, all under one app. So you can find a place to stay if you're just visiting the area, a place to live if you want to move there permanently or for a long time, and you can also find a job on this app. Tempo Africa has launched a proudly African platform to stay, live, and work across the continent. So we'll be unpacking what that all looks like and how it actually works and how practical is it. And then we get into conversation with Kusini Water Champions. They are calling on communities to apply for their Water Champions program. They are calling unemployed and entrepreneurial community members, particularly women, youth, and people with disabilities, to apply for the Water Champions program. It will be providing training and to women, particularly to gain water technical skills and basics of water technology and treatment, becoming water champions in their communities. That's all coming up on the Upside.
That's the Upside coming up at the top of the hour with Tebogo Kuleni and Matseko Musito. Now we continue On Africa Update, and a lot is still happening and unfolding across the continent and the globe, with calm having returned at Sheikh Anta Diop University in Senegal's capital, Dakar. The university has been the place of unrest since early December. Students have been protesting a lack of financial aid from the government, leading to clashes with police. On Friday, the situation deteriorated again, and other institutions also saw protests. Students were reportedly throwing rocks and were met with tear gas from security forces, whose help authorities requested. And for more, Channel Africa's Nhlanhla Mahlangu spoke to Dr. Yankobe Sedi, a lecturer from the University of Dakar.
The cause is a failure for the government to pay the scholarships for over a year. Some students said, they stayed for 13 months, which is 1 year and a month, without being paid. Exclusively about the students who have enrollment in master's level. The other segments are not directly concerned. So they thought they had to be, among those to receive those scholarships. And unfortunately, based on, what the government said are those who deserve receiving this scholarship, some of those students did not, fill the conditions. But others fill the conditions. Unfortunately, the government, particularly the higher education minister, they would be paid, but they had to wait until everything is in place. Unfortunately, this situation, brought about the protest. And this protest started already we had a first wave of it in early December. And I remember my own office here, was targeted, of course, not intentionally, and also the office of my international office. But given that the situation, calmed down after a series of intervention from different parts of civil society, the students said, okay, we would stop for the moment, and that moment should be, taken advantage by the government to solve the problems in the meantime. Otherwise, when we come back, it's going to be much tougher. And now, when they came back last Friday, it was indeed tough because, nobody could have access to the university. I myself had a meeting out of the campus, and I couldn't enter. And that day, when I came back in the afternoon, it wasn't possible. So the troubles, once again, are caused by failure for the government to pay the students, specifically master's students, their scholarships, which they have been, claiming, not to have received for over a year.
You speak of interventions. What sort of interventions are we talking about?
People, were asking the students not to use violence, that they have right to claim things that they believe they should have. It's, for instance, the scholarship. There is no negotiations. The students deserve having their scholarships. They should have them. And one thing is to have a scholarship. The other thing is to be paid. And that's what the problem is. Now, these interventions would ask students not to use violence. In the exchange with the policeman, they will be, throwing, and they will be receiving also tear gas from the police. And when they retaliate, this causes, troubles, and some of them will even be injured, including workers, who have nothing to do with this. That's a problem. But so once again, those who intervene, they only ask the students to calm down, and at the same time, they talk to the government to do their best to find a solution to this. So they only want peace to prevail, and that is possible when they talk to the students and also talk to the government.
What is the situation like today? Has calm returned to the university?
Students have what they call Black Day. They consider today as a Black Day. So the campus is absolutely calm. This is a university, Sheikh Anta Diop. It's a university of 91,000 students, the biggest of the country, and there is no student. You don't see, you don't see students. There is not even movement. Only the police. Police is, deployed on the main thoroughfare. Just,
That was Dr. Yankoba Sedi, a lecturer at the University of Dakar, speaking to Nhlanhla Mahlangu. And that's how we wrap Africa Update today. Continue with us on all our social media platforms, and thank you for joining us. Let's do this again tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Tune in and turn up the volume. This is Channel Africa.
Well, it's gone 1 p.m. Central African time. A big thank you to Lulu Gaboo and team. Join them again tomorrow, same time, same place. It's now time for The Upside from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Central African time with me, Tebohole Kuleni and Matseko Mosito. But before we get into our festivities, let's get the latest news.
SABC News. The African Perspective.